the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Salt of the... Wait a minute. We're not doing Salt of the Streets today. Today is Friday, which means it's actually time for beer time with BigBird, except you might notice that we're doing some slightly different this week and probably going forward. This is a live stream show now. Boom. Here we are. Happy Friday, everybody. We're We're straightening up the structure of the show a little bit. We're going to be doing our standard kind of beer review right off the top. I've got a fresh beer here. I'm off the non-alcoholic beer game. I've done my sober 30, and we are 100% back in the game now. And so we're going to be cracking into a fresh new brew from a local brewery. Actually, I'm very excited about it because 'tis the season for Oktoberfest. And then after we do that, we're going to be diving into one of the biggest stories that's been kind of irking at me the most this week in the good old vein of the standard Salt the Streets podcast style, except for this time I'm rolling solo, kind of similar to what we did last week when Donovan was out with the sickness. But we just finished recording this month's review preview for the book club, available on our Patreon and here once a week. It is if you don't know what it is the once a week he does a live stream for the Salt the Streets book club, which he's been doing since the beginning of the year. And this month's book was Don't Hurt People and Don't Take Their Stuff by Matt Kibbe, I believe, a libertarian manifesto, which was a fantastic book. And we just finished recording the review preview, which is a full-blown produced show that will be available here on YouTube the first of the month, starting in September 1st. So you can get yourself some of that. Ivan, welcome to the show, my friend. I love student loan forgiveness. Said every drama and women's studies major. Amen, brother. Welcome to the show, buddy. Now that Ivan's here, I suppose we can really dive into the show. Today's beer, before we get into the lovely... Oh, yeah. Let me introduce the topic of the week, obviously. I'm going to be talking about the beer that I have here. It's secret. You can't see it yet, but you will soon. And we're going to be talking about student loan debt forgiveness and stuff like that. That just happened this week. It's been... to pull a line from Family Guy, it's been grinding my gears all week, and we just have to talk about it. I mean, come on, let's be real here. It's one of the biggest things, extra constitutional things that has happened in recent weeks, I guess, because these are the times we're living in these days. So, without any further ado, let's dive into today's beer, the Oktoberfest Lager. It's officially that time of year. I know the first time I saw it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, from my local brewery, Silver City. The same one is the first Oktoberfest I've had this year. I've had a couple since then because it's my favorite beer of all time. And so we're going to share that here today, right here on the show. And then we're going to dive into talking about student loan debt forgiveness, debt relief, inflation additive, taxing the normies, whatever we want to call it. We'll get there. But today, we're going to crack into this lovely Oktoberfest. And I'm in a new position. So the pour, Ivan, if you're not used to this, I generally screw up the pour and do it just real dirty right on camera. But today's looking so far so good. So far so good. Oh, come on, buddy. I poured one the other day perfectly. This is standard stream style pour. Massive head. Total jacked up pour. Not good. I swear, the other day, I poured one. The whole can went into this glass, the same glass actually, and I didn't have to taper, didn't have to do anything. The whole thing went in beautifully, and I had the perfect amount of head on it. I had everything just right. But of course, because we're in front of camera today, that's not gonna happen. But as per the usual, if you haven't watched Beer Time with BigBird before, I always take a look at the smell. You know, we do a nice full review of this thing. The Oktoberfest beers are also known as a Marzen lager, and it's made with a particular set of grain, particular malt profile, generally only brewed one time of the year during the early fall. Then it's kind of done after that, and nobody generally makes another Marzen ever throughout the year. It's kind of a one and done. This is what you get. Enjoy it while you can type of beer. And I always do, because it's always my favorite thing. It's like for a lager, it's one of the maltiest beers I can think of. which I absolutely love. You know, I like an IPA. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so I enjoy a nice hoppy beer. But I also really like a nice solid malt in a beer. I like a nice beer that tastes like beer in my mind. So we're gonna go ahead. Right off the top, you could smell it. It smells just like an Oktoberfest should. Beautiful, round, full aroma, maltiness, just begging to be drank. Oh, it's killing me. The anticipation is killing me. So, happy Friday, everybody! Cheers to the new beer time with BigBird. Ivan, first come, buddy. Welcome aboard. Let's take a drink here. Oh, yeah, and just like an Oktoberfest should be. It's a lager, so it's not super, I won't say bold is the wrong term, but it's real refreshing, as any lager should be. If you're thirsty, if you drink a lager, you should be like, oh, that was nice. You shouldn't be like, oh, that's a heavy beer. I can't be drinking that right now. It's too hot outside. No, lagers are meant to be drank, you know, particularly if it's hot outside, you should be able to reach for a lager and have it be refreshing to the palate. And that's exactly what this bad boy is. Oh, happy Friday to me. That's all I got to say about that. Silver City always does just a great Oktoberfest beer every single year. This is the earliest I can recall them bringing it out. This came out, like I said, like mid-August or mid to early August, which is, you know, about normal, but felt a little early this year. Maybe it's because the weather's still been pretty hot. We had kind of a late entrance into summer out here in the Pacific Northwest, and so kind of still feels like we're in the heyday of summer, which, you know, whether we are or not, according to the calendar, I think is whatever. It doesn't really matter. But hey, Oktoberfest is out, so I'm happy. And this beer is it's just fantastic. It's got the full body you want from an Oktoberfest with the drinkability a standard lager, particularly an Oktoberfest, has. You can drink these, you can drink more than you want, and you'll feel it eventually. I think this thing's coming in at 6.2, so it's not too shabby. But you have a couple few, and you'll be feeling them. So there you go. That's the beer review, and we're gonna need it today because we're gonna dive into the lovely first story of the day. Biden cancels up to $10,000 in student debt relief for many borrowers and also extends the payment pause. First and foremost, I think this headline's a little leading because it is $10,000 in student loans for anybody, as they get into later in the story, that makes under $125,000 per year. But if you are a Pell Grant recipient, which we will also talk a little bit later in the show about, you actually are eligible for up to $20,000 of student debt relief. So let's just see what this here fantastic outlet, The Hill, and I'm being very facetious there because they've gone downhill a lot lately. Let's see what they have to say about it. President Biden officially announced on Wednesday that his administration is forgiving up to $10,000 in federal student loan debt for borrowers making less than $125,000 annually and $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients, marking the largest forgiveness of loans per individual to date. Biden also again extended a payment freeze on federal student loans and interest accrual, butting right up against an August 31st deadline that would have kicked bills back into effect just before the November midterm elections. So let's pause there, because we've got the initial meat and potatoes on this one. So we got up to 10 to 20,000, depending on how you applied for loans and if you got any Pell Grants when you took out your federal student loans, along with an extension of the date at which you have to currently, if you are currently paying student loans, you have another extension added on to conveniently right after the midterm elections. Conveniently, I'd be grasping at straws at this point. I'd be making assumptions if I said this is blatant partisanship, if it's blatant vote bribery. I don't know what you want to call it, but explain to me why you would extend the deadline to the end of the year, right past midterms, unless it was you were trying to get more people to come out. You passed this thing right before the midterms, right after the primaries are kind of coming into a close, and then you say, okay, but right after the midterms, right after you elect a bunch of us because we just hooked you up with your student loan forgiveness, now we're going to now you got to start paying us again. Explain to me that one. The timing is super sus. It doesn't really make any sense. But the what do I want to call it? The way in which this has been allowed to take place, because the extra constitutional nature of this is pretty out there for most people to hear. There's a clip of Nancy Pelosi these days going viral right now talking about how student debt forgiveness is not in the purview. It's not legal for the president to do it, to now cut a couple of years into the presidency saying, oh yeah, it's I guess it's definitely in his purview. He can totally do that. I guess that's totally fine. Doesn't matter that the Congress is generally the ones that should be a hold of the taxpayers' finances and control the purse strings and so on and so forth. Whatever. As long as it gets us, retains us some power after midterms, then we're good. So let's continue on with this Hill article. The payment pause is now in effect until December 31st, and the White House said the pause is extended one final time. Add that to the pile of being totally partisan in nature. Indicating that January will mark the end of the year's long student loan payment freeze. We got to remember this. He froze these payments at the beginning of COVID once he took emergency powers, as far as public health and so on and so forth. And he decided then it was okay. It was legal for him to say, yeah, you don't have to pay us back anymore because we're just going to put a freeze on this until the pandemic kind of quells and all this, that, and the other thing. But once that's done and midterm's over, then you'll have to go back to paying again. Don't even ask if the only reason he's allowed to offer the student debt forgiveness is because of his extra constitutional executive powers that he gained through emergency powers because of the pandemic. But we'll get into that later. The White House also said that if borrowers have undergraduate loans, this is another key part of this. If you have undergraduate loans, they cap repayment at 5% of their monthly income. Current students with loans are also eligible for this debt relief, and dependent students will be eligible for relief based on their parents' income. So you don't even really need, you can still be living with your parents and then have access to this debt forgiveness, this loan forgiveness, if you will. So let's take a pause there. Deborah, what's up, Deborah? Welcome to Beer Time with BigBird. This is a little bit different than your standard live stream that you'll be joining us for. This is my weekly beer show, which we don't usually do a live stream for, but we're changing it up. We're gonna be doing something different here. I just got done with a 30-day sober July, and kind of extending that a little further than was probably necessary, but we did it, but we're back in the game now, and we're doing the beer show live, obviously, since you're here, and thank you again for joining us. But we're going to be doing this live on Fridays now. I'm thinking about 4 p.m. is going to be the standard. We're going to be doing this, and I'm going to be cracking the beer, talking about it, and then we'll be picking basically the biggest story of the week that's been just grinding at me all week that I just can't let go of. And this week, you're lucky enough to be involved in the student debt forgiveness bullshit that our executive dictator, aka President Joe Biden, has decided he has the power to do. But yeah, so there's the real meat and potatoes of the basics of what's going on. If you have an undergraduate degree, your payments are now capped at 5% of your income, even if you're living at home with your parents. So that's a thing. $10,000 can be forgiven, canceled, if you will, if through the standard process, and then if you received a Pell Grant, you're eligible for up to $20,000, which I think now is the right time to talk about Pell Grants. So I'm going to bring up this. This was really interesting. The Pell Grant is a federal grant that is given out through the U.S. Department of Education. And I don't know exactly what it's based off of, but there is a set amount that you can apply for every single year. It's a grant. I mean, it's free money from the government to go towards your schooling costs. Back in the heyday, when I was looking to go to college online, Pell Grant was capped about $5,000, but it has since risen. I looked it up for the 2019. I figured pre-pandemic would be a good time to pull it in. And the Pell Grant is capped at, in 2019, $6,195. But, it gets smaller and smaller based off of, what year you applied for it. As you go further back in history, the amount becomes less. But I have a question. I mean, if you apply for a Pell Grant now, you actually get an extra $10,000 of debt relief based off of the fact that you got a Pell Grant. But what is the current Pell Grant amount? Let's just Google this real quick since we got it up. Current Pell Grant amount is $6,800, closing in on $6,900. So you're gonna have more. The amount of money in debt relief that you'll get sent is more than the amount of the Pell Grant you were granted based on income, Deborah. Thank you. So yeah, they're already. I don't understand how that just automatically gives you another 10 grand unless there's some kind of projected interest assumed with the amount for a Pell Grant. I'm not really sure about that one, but so yeah, there you go. 10,000 for regular, 20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Let's pull up another story here. This one from Yahoo Finance, which is always a fun place to go for news stories. Is Yahoo. They're always great. So let's see. Student loan forgiveness plan sparks opposition from some of Biden's own allies. Yeah, this is a really interesting aspect to this story. The pushback that he's getting from certain people, especially the ones that are saying, well, this is a good start, but really what we needed is, yes, Brandon logic. This is 100% Brandon logic, Deborah. Thank you so much. That's perfect. So let's read the story. President Biden's move to cancel student debt was long expected, but the scope of the effort was not. The expectation of $10,000 in student loan cancellation was widely reported in the lead up to Wednesday's news, but the final package included an additional $10,000 in forgiveness for Pell Grant recipients. The administration also laid out a cap on income based on repayments. This is stuff we covered in the last story. Quote, it's a game changer, says President Biden on Wednesday when he unveiled the plan. The move predictably sparked opposition by Republicans who have lined up en masse against the plan. Yeah, imagine that. Taxpayers paying for the richest people in America's student loans. Of course, people are going to be pissed off, especially the ones that didn't go to college, paid their way through college, or have already paid their student loans. The move, we already read that part. But some regular allies of the White House in both the political and economic spheres have also expressed concern over the breadth of the release. Jason Furman, who worked in President Obama's White House, tweeted to note that Biden has gone beyond his 2020 campaign promise to a much bigger package. He noted that pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on the inflation fire that is already burning is reckless. And that's where I want to stop this story. That's why I pulled this one up, because the rough amount of how much it's going to cost is between $400 to $500 billion in the first 2 years. So that is another essentially $500 billion added in government spending. This deficit spending. This isn't just, we're not raising taxes. This is just money from the Fed. Here you go. Your dollar that you have in your hand is now worth whatever the equivalent of $500 million more dollars in circulation is. So this is definitely going to add to inflation. The idea that people are going to have more money in their pockets because they're spending less on their student loans is also going to add to inflation, because more dollars chasing after fewer goods, the inflation. more money in circulation without any added consumables to the market adds to inflation. There is no other way to look at this. This is another $500 billion being added, but not even in regular circulation. This is going to be sent to financial institutions. This is just going to essentially allow you to pay a little bit less. And we got a statement from some Goldman Sachs economists later on in the show that we'll talk about that speak to essentially how little this is actually going to affect the overall bottom line of everybody. Wow, we're just adding another $500 million of print, money printer grow burr. Here we go. This is great. More spending, man. This is like a continuation of last week's episode of spend, the first segment in last week's episode. Let's just add more. Why not? And hell, it's damn near midterms. This is just going to make us look good. We're going to get more Democrats in the office so that we can continue to spend and just pretend that it has no effect on inflation. Let's see here. Let's pull up this next story again from the Hill. I got two stories from the Hill today. Student loans received after June 30th not eligible for relief. This one I love. Okay, let's just read it real quick and then we'll pontificate afterwards. Student loans received after June 30th are not eligible for relief under President Biden's new initiative cancellation of a certain amount of debt per borrower. The White House Domestic Policy Council Director Susan Rice confirmed June 30th of this year was the cutoff date during a Wednesday briefing that discussed the new relief initiative. The Biden administration will cancel up to blah, blah, blah. We've already gone over all that crap. Meanwhile, the student loan program pause will end December 30th now instead of August 31st, conveniently after midterms. The move was long awaited by Democrats and activists who say canceling the debt will help ease the cost of living for more than 44 million Americans who owe a combined $1.7 trillion in debt. $1.7 trillion in debt, and then you just cut that down by so now it's 1.3 trillion, 1.3? Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. That'll do a huge amount. The Department of Education has information available about the debt relief posted on studentaid.gov. So there you go. You can also go check that out. I've heard over the last 48 hours that the website, just like the Obamacare website, if you all remember when the ACA came out, everybody go out there and get your Obamacare. That website is down because the government has no idea how to do anything to date in the current state of technology. But hey, there you go. Sorry, I forget it's Friday, so it's a beer show. So I got to remember to drink this Oktoberfest. Sometimes when you're just sitting here talking into a microphone, you forget to drink your beer. So this one is great. This is perfect because for those people that have, especially given the amount of dialogue around the predatory lending practices of federal student loans, the people that are continuing to go out there and take out loans, so the ones obviously pushing past June 30th, so in July and August, if you just took out a gang of debt and then this president decides that he's going to use his extra constitutional power, his dictatorial power, because of the pandemic, emergency powers, that he could still do this, you're not eligible for that. So just a giant FU right to the face. That's so good. The irony is so thick. I could probably drink it. So we're going to pretend this is irony today. We're just going to drink the irony. It's so good. It is so good. And it's such a huge, we've talked about this on the show for so long at this point because it was a campaign. What do you call it? It was a campaign promise that Joe Biden made on the trail, and he's been talking about so much, and the progressive wing of the party's been talking about it so much. How fair is it to make every single American partly responsible for paying back student loans to people that, according to the stats, will make more money than you? The hardest working blue collar workers out there, the people that that work in the middle Americans. What does Joe Biden always say? We're going to build America from the middle down and the bottom up, or whatever the hell he says. Middle class working Americans are going to pay for the people that would become upper class Americans. Congratulations, America. You just refined the class system for the future. Good luck, Godspeed. It's disgusting. So let's pull in the real one percenters and their statement on this. This article here from Market Watch. Goldman Sachs has run the numbers on the student loan forgiveness. This is its assessment. Excuse me. The hazards of trying to do a live stream beer show. Sometimes, gets complicated. All right, so let's read. The White House on Wednesday finally released its program for student loan debt relief. As if they're so relieved that it's finally here. Imagine who would imagine it would have come just before midterms? Who would imagine that? Not me. There's no way I would have found that out. But saying that's going to cancel up $20,000 per borrower to household earning as much as $250,000. So that's with the Pell Grant and a combined household income of less than $250,000. Goldman Sachs economists Joseph Briggs and Alec Phillips ran through the numbers so two economists from Goldman Sachs ran through they ran through all the numbers, and they gave a conclusion, perhaps jarring to the plan's supporters and detractors alike, that it won't amount to much, saying the headlines are bigger than the macroeconomic impact. If all borrowers eligible for the program enroll, it will reduce student loan balance from around $400 billion. Then why are we doing $500 billion? Or 1.6% of GDP. That's not a given. The economists point out the previous program to reduce student loan payments didn't reach full enrollment. So we're going to estimate that it's not going to reach full enrollment because obviously we covered also in some of the previous shows that the Department of Education through the executive branch has been essentially shutting down a lot of online academies, online colleges, and through a series of lawsuits essentially have lost, because they are the Department of Education. But and a lot of people that say, like ITT Tech and Ashford University and a bunch of these online colleges, you can go through a different route right now and have your entire debt taken off the board because they were legally essentially found of doing, some form of predatory lending or some kind of defrauding the government. I don't remember, the exact specifics of those, but there's a number of people that should not, if you're carrying debt from one of those colleges, you should probably go that route versus the taxpayer-funded $10,000 student loan debt relief. But let's carry on here. The economists then drew on both Education Department data as well as Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances to estimate the boost to income and consumption. So they're going to be taking a look at how much extra income you're going to be getting compared to how much extra consumption that will essentially they'll anticipate that happening. And through lower income households, we'll see the largest proportional cut in debt payment. Most of them don't have student debt. The wealthy, on the other hand, are limited by the income threshold attached to the relief. Middle income households will benefit the most, except for it's going to be their tax dollars that go to this and their effect on inflation. The effect on inflation will affect them more than obviously high. What's the impact? Payments will fall from 0.4% of personal income to 0.3%. So you get a 0.1% reduction in your personal income. There you go. The modest reduction in debt payments as a share of income implies only a modest boost of GDP relative to a counterfactual where debt forbearance ends and normal debt payments resume. Our estimates imply a 0.1% point boost to the level of GDP in 2023 with small effect on subsequent years due to the natural maturization of student loans, aka the interest, as well as continued growth in nominal GDP, they say. There's also an offset. The end of the student loan payment pause to the end of the year. So, quote, so will the new debt forgiveness program will boost consumption slightly. So while the new debt forgiveness program will boost consumption slightly, the combined effect of debt forgiveness and a payment resumption will be slightly negative, the Goldman team writes. So here's a nice little chart that shows the exhibit jump in student loan payments in January. So this is the estimated jump in student loan payments because that's when student loan payments are going to occur. And so we have, starting back in 2017, roughly $60 billion student loan payments coming in, and we're going to jump right back there to just above the amount when we jump back in 2023. This is oh, I didn't even show you guys. Sorry, I was in the wrong camera. There you go. There's the chart. Boom, 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 and we're there. But this drives me insane. We're going to federally fund through taxpayer dollars, which we will all pay at the end of this year, going into April, obviously, of 2023. We're all going to be paying for this. And there's essentially nothing we can do about it because the Congress didn't do it. The president did it. So the executive branch, without any say of the Congress, a.k.a. we the people, has decided now to raise all of our taxes or by fiat raise our taxes through lowering the amount our dollar is worth. So I think on that note, we're going to say cheers to dictator President Biden. Cheers to everybody. I am so ready for it to be Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. This, once again, has been the new and improved version of Beer Time with BigBird. I'm drinking an Oktoberfest. I hope you're drinking something fantastic, too. Cheers, everybody. Have a great week.